Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unleashing Potentials podcast. Today's special guest is Lady J. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Can you tell our listeners where you're tuning in from?
I am tuning in from Indianapolis, Indiana, in the United States.
Oh, nice, nice. And can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Well, my name is Lady J. I do a lot. I'm a community servant leader. I am known as the Bounce Back Queen.
Mm.
I also am an award-winning community leader and a national speaker, author, media mogul, serial entrepreneur, author, yeah, and a host of other things.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. Uh, what were you doing before you get into the work that you're doing?
Business development and management in
Mm-hmm.
the corporate world.
Okay, that's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more of your childhood and some of the traumas that you had to go through, if you're willing to share that?
My childhood, I grew up in a broken family, broken home. My background is, full of domestic violence, abuse,
Mhm.
sexual assault, and hardships, trauma, things of that sort. And that's why I'm known as the bounce back queen, because a lot of my life has been a fight. So, and no matter what comes my way, I tend to
Mhm.
activate my resilience and continue to bounce back.
Wow, I love that. I love that. Um, how would you normally describe what you did to someone who doesn't know?
Well, I would say that I provide a host of services and products through my multimedia company and my nonprofit organization to help others in business, but I also teach others how to bounce back from seemingly impossible circumstances so that they can be positioned to be sustainable and win in life and business.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay, I love that. Um, what kind of clients do you work with? Is it women, men, or just everybody?
Everybody. So on the entertainment, media, multimedia side,
Mhm.
I mean, the platform that I have is quite large. So it's anything from radio to TV, magazine, news, PR, management, all of that.
Mhm.
That encompasses everybody, of course. So when it comes to business, though, mostly like small businesses or Black owned businesses, it's really for everybody, but they can be men, women, and even some youth. On the other side, under my BounceBackology company, I serve at-risk youth and families in need.
Mhm.
And then under life support, it's mostly that's where I speak. So someone may have me come speak, about business, or it could be about, life and personal development, uh, you know, things of that sort. And that's where under that company is also where my books and things come from.
Mhm.
And also when it dealing with businesses, mostly adults. So anybody that is wanting to start, grow, or fix a company or business organization under that company as well. So
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah,
wide variety.
yeah, yeah. I love all the work that you're doing, and I'm sure the impact is profound and needed. Um, would you be willing to talk more about how you overcome everything that you've been through?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can ask away any questions that you want to ask. I'll be more than happy to more than
Okay,
happy to answer.
okay. Let's talk about domestic violence. And because this month in October is Domestic Violence
Hmm.
Awareness Month, what was your experience with it? And what would you like to share to those who are going through it or have been through it?
Well, I've experienced domestic violence on both ends. So as a child growing up in domestic violence, and also as an adult entering into domestic violence relationships. So as a child, I grew up in a home where, domestic violence was a daily thing. There was a lot of drugs and alcohol, fighting. Yeah. And not your normal, just like hitting each other. I mean, like all full blown out fighting,
Mm.
ambulance having to be called, and bloodshed and all that stuff. It was very scary, but and toxic and traumatizing, but at the same time it became like a norm in my home outside of me being with my grandparents, which was a completely opposite,
Mm.
model. So,
Mm.
and as I grew older, I noticed that I started to repeat those patterns because that's what I saw. So, getting into relationships with people who are controlling, marrying marrying two people that were controlling, and abusive physically, mentally, emotionally, verbally,
Mm.
any type of abuse you can think of that falls under domestic violence. I've lived it. And that for me it was, it added to the trauma I had already endured as a child because I did not get the help needed. So it was ultimately adding trauma on top of trauma. And so it wasn't until I had children that I made the decision that I needed to get out and work on myself so that I could not only learn to like me and love me, understand what I deserved and what my worth was and what my value was, but also so that I could break the cycle and then set an example for my children as well, so that they would not be exposed to that, continue to be exposed to that, and then repeat the same process.
Oh my goodness, you've been through so much, and yet you're still standing and you're
Yes,
helping women. Oh wow. I'm speechless, and that's not
yes.
fair. Because thank you for sharing. Thank you for
No problem.
impacting, empowering. Um, I've seen, growing up as a child, my parents, um, my dad, beating on my mom and other stuff. And yeah, it does add on top of trauma and trauma. Um, how how did you overcome those traumas? Were there some tools that you used, resources or help that you got to help you?
So I would say God gave me a unique set of tools. So the very first thing I did was reached out to a church that had a program called Victims to Victory. And it
Mm.
was like a 12-step program. And that was like the starting point of my healing process. Of course, that did not fix everything, of course, but it did help and started to, I'll say, provide me with the necessary knowledge and wisdom and tools to be able to work through it. And as I grew older, I understood that without the spiritual aspect, I would not be able to be in a position where I am now. So, and that's holistically. So, with the program that God gave me and going through all of that, the people that He sent my way,
Mhm.
strangers who came alongside to help me on this journey, they each provided a certain set of tools and wisdom
Mhm.
that helped me in areas that I needed help in, things I did not know, you know, as far as, let's say, why forgiveness is for myself and not the other person. Because without that, I'm unable to move forward. That is one of the hardest things to do. And when I'm teaching people how to do that through my program, BounceBackology, that is where people get stuck because in our minds, we have this we have this mindset where we think that, oh, you don't know what they did to me, they don't deserve forgiveness and things of that sort, but you don't realize that that person is living their life while you are still stuck and holding on to that. And while it may look like everything is going well in their lives, everybody has to reap what they sow. And really, if we focus more so on the things that we need to be working towards, the things that we want, then we could get a lot further and be healed and be enjoying ourselves as well. So with that program, there are 5 phases. And so I had to realize that first and foremost, I had to be honest with myself about who I was right then in that moment, how I felt,
Mm,
and what I saw about myself and why. And so once I'm able to do that, then I can start the process of operating, if you will, or extraction. So Operation Rock Bottom is what I call it.
mm,
So until you reach that point, you're not going to move forward. It's kind of like a addict. Until you're able to say, I have a problem, you're not going to be able to fix it. So, and then you go into the phase of stepping into healing and then prepare for the comeback. And then you start to rebuild your life, emotionally, mentally, socially, financially, all of those things. And then you celebrate the comeback. So those are the 5 phases.
mhm,
And so I tell everybody, you have to start with, what do you see? What do you see? The who, the what, and the why.
mm,
And that's the only way you can start moving into the how.
mhm,
So
mm. Yeah, I love that. I love that you're sharing about forgiveness. I also did an interview and that also came up. Forgiveness, forgiveness of the self and of those who caused the hurt or the harm. And I
mhm,
think we forgive to not forget. I think sometimes
mhm,
people mix that up and see it as if we're weak for doing that, when really we're strong for acknowledging that we must forgive for ourselves. Like you said, people they're living their life and we're living with their actions and the stuff that they did. Um, in your program, do you have maybe step by step tools that you use to help others forgive?
yes. So there, I mean, each each phase has certain steps that you have to do, that you go through. And these are not things that, okay, you have to do this within a week or you have to do this within 2 weeks. No, because everybody's,
Mhm,
I'll say, journey is going to be at a different pace. And so my job is to provide the tools to you and teach you how to apply them and use them. And then you apply them at your own pace. My job is to help you through it, but I can't do it for you, if that makes sense. So, and it's not like your average program. It's really outside of the box. There are, interactive activities that we do together. There are live demonstrations. I love demonstrations because people are able to grasp, what you're saying and how to apply different things. And then there are incentives along the way to help you keep going, because healing is a very hard process. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't feel good. You're already in things or have gone through things that don't feel good to you. They don't look good, but that doesn't mean that just because something is not good to you doesn't mean it's not good for you.
mhm,
That is very important to
mhm,
remember,
mhm,
because everything that we go through is not just for us. We are going to be assigned to help somebody else. We're going to come at least one person in our lifetime that has experienced the very same things that we have. And so it is up to us to pass down what we have learned to that individual. We are not here just for ourselves. Everybody here has a purpose. So if you keep that in mind, then it becomes a little bit easier to go through the process. But having incentives and having somebody there to hold you accountable, and then tell you you're doing an amazing job, I'm so proud of you, look at how far you've come, and having those tangible incentives. So the incentives are intangible, and we do have a lot of those. Will continue to help that person on their journey to healing. So my job is to not help you cope, but to help you actually overcome or conquer it. So, because a lot of the things that I experienced, they lead to things like deep depression, suicidal attempts, or suicidal ideation, which are things that I've actually done myself. I've tried to commit suicide 4 times in my lifetime. Each time
mhm,
I lived. Of course, I'm still here.
mhm,
And before point, having access to those tools and that knowledge and wisdom of the things that they are able to take hold of and apply
mhm.
will help prevent that, because those things are just symptoms. They're symptoms of an underlying problem. So if you deal with the root of the issue, then those symptoms will subside.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I love that. I love that you turn your pain into power, and with that, you're helping other people as well. Wow, wow. Let's talk about suicide. It it
Hmm.
it can be a taboo topic, not because we
Hmm.
don't understand what it means what it can cause, like the pain it can create in life for those who have lost loved ones. In your opinion,
Mhm.
I've dealt with that as well, attempts in the past, and I'm still here, right? In your opinion, how can we talk openly about this topic without making anyone feel guilt for having done it or think about it?
So here's the thing. You can't erase the feeling of guilt when it comes to suicide, because
Mhm,
once you enter into a mindset where you understand who you truly are and what it is that you possess and the power or influence of your story, you do feel guilty because you realize that you've shortchanged yourself though all of those years, that you allowed
mm,
another individual to have a certain level of power over you that should have never happened. And it's not to say that that is like a horrible thing or unforgivable thing. It's just that you didn't know any better. You didn't have the necessary tools in order to tap into what it is that you tapped into now.
mm,
So, but what I will say is it is a very taboo topic because we don't like to,
mhm,
I'll say, be so transparent to the fact where we admit that we were once that weak. But the reality is, all of us are weak.
mm,
But at the same time, all of us are strong. We're humans. We're not God. You know what I'm saying? We're not robots. We're not superheroes. We have weak moments. There are going to be things that happen in life that makes us feel weak. And that's when our family or our friends, or if you believe in a higher power, God and things of that sort, come in to, hold us up or build us up when we are down, just like you would if you were, if you were helping someone else. So, but I think the key thing is in this particular topic is to be transparent,
mm,
because the reality is that just because your mess
mm,
is a little bit more visible than somebody else's doesn't mean that they don't have mess. It just means that yours is more visible than theirs. That's all.
yeah,
Everybody has something that they are dealing with. Everybody, and that's what makes us imperfect.
mm,
But at the same time, talking about it is one thing. It is necessary so that people don't feel alone. But we have to do more than just talk about it. So not only should we be talking about it and sharing our stories, we have to also be sharing the tips and tools, and the words of encouragement, things that we picked up along the way, the lessons, so that someone else can use that to help them, you know, come out on the other side. That's the key, because suicide is 100% preventable. It really is.
mhm,
And again, that starts with knowing that your identity is not tied to another person. Everything that you need and that you are looking for concerning you is inside of you. And the only person in this life that should ever have that level of power to, you know, help you understand who you are or what you are, your value, and things of that sort is your creator.
mhm,
That's it. Not even your parents. And so many of us, because a lot of our trauma stems from our upbringing, the things that we experienced in our childhood, we've given our parents a certain level of power that they should never have. They are vessels by which we came through. That's it. And when your parents are absent or when they have become, you know, uh, extremely toxic or abusive
mhm,
individuals in your life, a lot of us have been afforded the opportunity to have other people come in and fill those roles. For me, it was my grandmother and godmother. They have to be enough. So when we realized that even in that, we were still being kept, we were still being loved, we were still being cared for by them and not those, that we came through,
yeah,
we have to realize that that's enough, that that's the way it should be. And that is part of your story. And that's what makes your story unique and powerful. So, because you're going to run into other people that are
mm.
experiencing that same
Yeah,
thing. So,
yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. You mentioned being transparent. Um, I have a hard time doing that sometimes, especially with healthcare professionals. All right. Obviously, I'm still diagnosed with mental health issues, but earlier in the phase of what I was going through, yeah, I wanted to be gone and not be here.
mhm.
But I felt that they could have gone a step deeper instead of hey, this is how I'm feeling. And I don't like psych wards, and that's where I get tossed to. That's where most people who
Mhm,
want to harm themselves, that's where they go. And yeah, they ask you to be open to talk about your feelings or emotion. And when you do, you get locked up. That's been my
mhm,
experience. And
mhm,
it was hard for me to open up about because I felt
mhm,
that when I was being honest or when I opened myself, I was punished for it. And
mhm,
from my experience, most people who say that they want to hurt themselves, they're actually crying for help. That's what I was doing.
mhm,
I still have kids, and I was crying for help, but
mhm,
there was no help coming. Help was coming, but they were sheltering me and putting me in psych wards.
mhm.
That's been my experience.
So I spent 24 hours on suicide watch myself. The fourth time I tried to commit suicide.
Mhm.
Here is what I feel about that, because I myself I have a master's in psychology, and so I am against locking people up just because they have suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
Now I understand that you have to take those thoughts seriously because people will try it. I did several times. So keeping them in a space where they can be watched 24/7 is necessary. However, as I have said many times before,
Mhm.
therapists and psychologists are necessary. However, you cannot reach the level of freedom or liberty or deliverance from those things
Mhm.
that are keeping you in that mindset unless you add other components. Because 9 times out of 10, therapists and psychologists only have to offer the things that they learned in a book
Yeah.
from a clinical standpoint. Not every diagnosis, a lot of people are walking around here diagnosed with bipolarism and you
Mm.
know, and severe depression and all these other things that
Yeah.
are just results, they're symptoms of an underlying issue. They're not equipped to help you get to the root.
Mhm.
If you pay attention to the mental health industry, they're the only industry that does not partner you with a quote unquote sponsor or someone who has gone through and experienced the very same thing you have. If
Mhm.
you go, if you're an alcoholic, they team you up with someone in
Mm.
AA who was an alcoholic and who is doing better. If you are a drug addict, they team you up with somebody. So why is it in the mental health industry they don't team you up with somebody who has suicide ideation?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, the mental health industry is a $1 trillion industry,
Mm.
and if they keep the doors revolving, then they're able to keep giving meds, they're able to keep seeing people, they're able to keep. So
Mhm.
these are all necessary things. So to have a confidant, to have a therapist and or psychologist if needed, to have medicine, to have a an individual, a quote unquote sponsor individual who has gone through those things and who has actually overcome that. The last time I tried to commit suicide, I was in my very early 20s, maybe 23, maybe
Mm.
uh let's see, 21, 22 or something. I'm 40 years old. This never even crossed my mind again. And I've been through some things, okay, since then.
Yeah.
A lot of things since
You
then.
have. Yeah.
So that all of those things put together
Mhm.
are necessary because we are not one-dimensional creatures. Like we're a whole person. We have emotions, there's finances, there's so many things going on. And so
Mm.
with that, I believe that a lot of people don't talk about their suicide ideation because of that, because they know that they're going to be locked up, or because they're going to know they're going to be taken away from their kids, or whatever the case may be. And so that's why my program is the way it's set up. That's why my program is set up the way it's set up. There are people who have come to me and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about killing myself," or "Hey, I do not go and call someone and be like, hey,
Mm.
this person wants to kill themselves." I can honestly say I haven't lost anyone yet, because a lot of people just want to be heard and they want someone that can give them the formula,
Mm.
to overcome whatever it is they're going through.
Mhm.
And that's another reason why honesty is key and transparency is key, because I'm never going to tell somebody, okay, this is going to be easy, we're going to get over this in about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, and everything going to be all right. No, it doesn't work like that. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
But having that outlet, I tell people all the time during the season of extraction is the hardest thing. Once you address the root of the issue, you go into forgiveness. Extraction is the hardest thing. During that, you're going to need a confidant. You're going to need a way to relieve stress and anxiety, and sadness. Crying is amazing. You feel better after you cry. You know, crying. Some people may work out. Some people may write. Some people sing. Some people, go to the they box or go shoot at the gun, whatever the case may be. You need certain avenues, to be able to release.
Hmm.
And when you operate in those things and you have those different coping skills,
Hmm.
that's only meant to be temporary during your transition. You don't stay in a season of coping, because coping really suggests that you accept where you are mentally, emotionally, and you learn how to coexist with it. That's not really living.
Hmm.
So I've gotten to many of arguments with professors, in school and things of that sort, because I'm like, yeah, these case studies are great for this very small group of people, but until you have actually lived this life, like I've lived this life and experienced these things that these people are experiencing, you have no clue, no clue. Okay, no clue, because you can try this stuff in a book all you want to, but I promise you, it's not gonna stick. So I think that you make people feel comfortable by opening up and talking about it when you put them in front of somebody who can understand where they're coming from, who they can relate to, and can meet them where they are.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because the difference between me and a counselor or a therapist and a psychologist is that I'm not bound by professional boundaries. I can share my own personal experience, but but share it in a way that it is helpful,
Hmm.
to whoever it is I'm talking to. And I also know other people who have experienced that. So Bernadette may take, this piece right here from Lady J's lessons, and this piece over here from Sarah's lessons, and this piece over here from John's lesson. You put that together, now you have this program that works for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is no cookie cutter or standard program that's going to fit everybody. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I'm so happy you can be a bridge for us, people who struggle with ideation. You're right. I love hearing from people that have been through what I've been through and how they overcome it and get by it. Yeah, you're right. They do go by the books. I mean, I'm not trying to guilt trip anyone. They have their education for a reason. But
Mhm.
yeah.
They are necessary. And I tell people all the time, therapists and psychologists are necessary, but they are more effective when you get past the rock bottom phase. When you get past the rock bottom phase, adding them into the equation,
Mhm.
is necessary, because everything has to work together. And like I said, I'm speaking from someone who is a degree, has a degree in psychology.
Yeah.
It's necessary, for a lot of people, but I didn't start therapy until I was in my 30s. So,
Mm.
I didn't start going to a therapist until I was in my 30s, but there's no way that therapist, my therapist hasn't gone through half the stuff that I've gone through.
Mhm.
But to be able to talk through my emotions and my mindset and stuff with feelings, and my feelings, and be able to hear somebody give suggestions on to things to try, or self-care, and why this is important, is necessary. She would not have been able to help me back in my 20s.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing she can offer me outside of from a clinical standpoint. That's it. So it has to make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And there has to be trust. I felt that
Yes.
my trust was still is violated because I'm asked to speak based on their education and there's notes. I'm like, what are you taking notes of? Like now I'm in many systems that are not opening up. Like I'm not the same person I was a year ago, 2 years ago,
Hmm.
3 years ago. Just last month, earlier this month, I called, just a line to talk to. And obviously, based on my background, that's all they need. Are you thinking of killing yourself?
Hmm.
I'm like, no,
Mm.
why would I call you and let you know that? And when was the last time you tried? I said, I do not want to talk about that because it's triggering for me. Would you like me to hang
Mm.
up or talk to me with what I'm going through right now? But that's been my experience. It's always going back to the root, going back to stuff I've healed or moved on from. Would you say that has been part of your experience as well?
For me, right now, no. And the reason I say that is because everything in my past, I have literally overcome. So nothing is triggering for me. I can go into great detail, explicit detail about things that happened to me from my childhood on up until now. And it doesn't bother me. It may trigger like some sad emotions, where I might cry while I'm talking just because it's a powerful testimony. And when I
Mhm,
see that it resonates with other people,
mhm,
it makes me smile because I know now that someone understands that there is someone else that knows exactly what they're going through and where they're coming from.
mhm,
What I try to do is I undress completely emotionally and mentally in front of whoever I'm talking to, especially when it's young people, because that's a lot of times where these things start. And I am for them what I did not have. And so when I start there, and there you can hear a pin drop in the room, and then everybody's rushing up to me saying, all at once trying to tell me what's going on, and I haven't asked anything.
mhm.
Like, that's an amazing and very powerful thing, to transpire. And when you realize the magnitude of your testimony, or your story,
Mhm,
and then even more so how impactful the lessons and the tools that you have are because they can help somebody else, that's
mhm,
an amazing feeling. But it's also a scary feeling because now you're responsible for these people because they become your assignment.
mhm,
And so that can be scary as well, and you don't want to fail them, but then you have to realize, but then you have to remind yourself that, well, I'm not doing the work for them. The only thing I can do is provide, the things that they need, and it's up to them to actually utilize those things and apply it. But I am responsible for following up and saying, hey, how are you doing? Are you doing this? And so that's why through my program I've been able to help like hundreds, oh my God, hundreds of people. And I love the stories when people come back a couple of years later or a year later and say, Lady J, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Man, I'm so happy. Your program helped me so much. Those are the stories that I love to hear. And
mhm,
since coming back and recovering from the ruptured brain aneurysm, now I'm able to do it virtually where I can have even more people join versus just doing it in person,
mhm,
at different locations and things of that sort. And so, yeah, that is, I would say
mhm.
everybody's going to have a trigger.
Yeah.
There are a couple things that trigger me. So like somebody ignoring me or being disrespectful, extremely disrespectful, because I've been walked all over so long, so much
Mhm.
of my life that sends me right into a rage. not not a
Yeah.
rage, but that just makes me angry. Like, I go from 0 to 1,000 real quick, and then I have to remind myself, okay, Lady J, just calm down, you know, calm down. But the things that I'll say the simple results of those underlying issues, if
Mhm,
they are still triggers, then that's something that you still need to work on, because you're going to have to get to a point where, one, you can talk about it freely without it being triggering,
mhm,
and understanding that everyone is not going to understand where you're coming from because they haven't lived it. They've never walked in your shoes. And two, you have to get to a point where you don't care what other people think.
mm.
Because in my mind, the way I see it is that I may not know what your mess is, but I know you have mess. You don't have to
Mhm.
tell me what it is. So you can look at me and say whatever you want. But I have a certain level of freedom that you don't have, and you probably will never have. There are so many people so scared that certain things are going to come out the closet. I've already told my stuff. I'm not ashamed of nothing that has happened to me, things I've done. And so I have a certain level of freedom that you wish you had.
Mhm.
And sometimes that makes people angry.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
That makes people angry. So to me, I have a one up. That's how I walk around. Like, I have a one up, and I have to keep that in my mind so that I'm not offended, if you will.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, you're right. And those people that are angry, at times it's a trigger for them. Something's it's like a thorn, you know, they watch us do what we do and how we healed, and we're not bothered to share. Yeah, yeah, sometimes it could be insecurities or whatever the reasons are. And I hope eventually those people learn to join the team and be part of the evolution and help people heal and the planet heal. Yeah. Tell me more
Absolutely.
about your brain aneurysm. Is that how I pronounce it? Aneurysm?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. What happened?
So, yeah, August 22nd of 2019, I suffered a ruptured brain aneurysm. And for those who don't know, that is when the blood vessels in your brain they blow up like a balloon, become full of, blood, and then they rupture. So you bleed out into your brain and you are literally dying. So your body and everything starts to shut down. And essentially, that's what happened to me. So,
Mm.
I did have brain surgery, and I still have it in my brain. It's just coiled off so that no blood can get into it or come out of it, but it did cause a major stroke on the right side, and I have some disabilities that are seen and unseen.
Mhm.
And it took a good 2 years, 2.5 years to fully recover. So I had to go through 19 months of rehab, occupational, physical, speech, cognitive, all of that. I had to relearn how to do everything. I couldn't do anything for myself, nothing.
Wow.
So, and that it was a very, very difficult thing. Most people die within the first 48 hours. And even after brain surgery, they don't live past the 10-day window. So
Mhm,
I'm very blessed to still be here.
mhm.
And if I did not have to get up to go to my studio when it happened, because I was asleep an hour before, I would have died in my sleep. Because once you're asleep, that's it. So,
Ooh,
you know,
wow.
I I know that God still has me here for a reason, and you know, and there was always warning before destruction. So I'm somebody who was trying to do everything and be everything for everybody, and I was told numerous times to stop, to slow down, don't do that, and I wouldn't listen. So, and that happened as a result. So, and my decisions affected my children, and my loved ones around me. So that in itself was another area of my life where I had to go back and then implement my own program for myself, because I had to then turn around and forgive myself. I had to learn how to accept my new normal, grieve the old me, and understand that I'm never going to be the same, and there are so many aspects to that. So I went through depression once again, suicidal ideation, no, but being depressed and all of those things. And so it's definitely been a major
Mm,
learning curve for me, the whole situation. And it is daily, it's a struggle daily, because it's a lot of things that you wish you could do that you can't do. There are things I probably won't ever get to do again that I love to do. So, and it's just you know a part of my story and the consequences of my decisions and my actions. So I
mm.
have to own that.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. And sometimes when we're hit by the unexpected and trauma, it can take
Mhm.
time for us to be like, what just happened? Right?
Mhm.
An example I'll give you for me is that I was going to school, I was doing great, and within a flash, everything changed. I had to be hospitalized, sometimes for a month, 2 months, few weeks, and I've never been the same person ever. I think I'm evolving, I'm learning,
Mhm.
and that's the beauty of trauma. It can teach us so many lessons, only if we let it. And I'm so grateful that you let it teach you, because I'm learning from you and your story. So I thank you. Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah,
Can you,
no
yeah,
problem.
you're welcome. Can you tell me more about your work with the homeless?
Well, with the homeless, in 2010, I decided to start a nonprofit to provide food, clothes, and other resources to the homeless and families in need. I myself know what it's like to be homeless. I've been on my own since I was 15. I was homeless as a teenager after I was, put out by my mother.
Mhm.
And I was also homeless as an adult with children as well. And so I really have a heart for homeless because not only did I experience it, but I understand that there are so many factors that contribute to that. And
Mhm.
so I want it to be something different than everybody else. So a lot of what God has given me or the assignments that He's given me, I've been able to accomplish those things through much different avenues than most people. Some people, they start a nonprofit, they go for grants and all that kind of stuff. I had none of those things. I didn't need those things. And so, and within 90 days, I had about 250 homeless people on a consistent basis come into my office. I continuously had food, clothes. I started a water event here in the state of Indiana, in our capital city, Indianapolis, to make sure they had water and things that started during the summer after a couple of my homeless clients died from heat stroke, things of that sort.
Mhm.
Making sure they could get access to the skills they needed to, let's say, look for new jobs, get new resumes. Some of them don't have addresses, so they need a place where they can pick up their new IDs and, all other important documents that they need, and treating them like people, treating them like people, sitting down, talking to them, learning their stories and providing them with jobs and things of that sort. So that is what my work looks like for them.
Mhm.
And I am always so excited about that work because it brings me a lot of joy, and to watch my children want to be a part of that too. They are always, serving with me. They they I'll say they copy the example that has been set for them. So
Wow.
and them knowing what it's like to be homeless, but at the same time not really being majorly affected by it. The only thing that they knew was that, we didn't have our own place, and sometimes we had to ride the bus. They had no idea that I was skipping meals or some of the things that I had to do to make sure we had a place to lay our heads, and things of that sort. But yeah, so I definitely, I would say that between that and working with at-risk youth and families, those are my passions, if you will.
Mm.
So my main purpose.
Wow. I love that. You do everything. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Wow. Wow.
Yes.
You do everything, all of it. Wow. For those who are watching and listening, what are some key takeaways that you want them to get from this episode?
Well, one, I would say remember that just because something is not good to you doesn't mean it's not good for you.
Mm.
There's a lesson in everything.
Mhm.
And we would not be in a position to evolve and grow if we never experienced,
Mhm.
the things that aren't so good to us, the things that don't feel good, so keep that in mind. Everything that you go through is not just for you. So you are essentially picking up knowledge, wisdom, and tools to be able to utilize them to help somebody else.
Mhm.
That's one. And two, you can literally bounce back from anything. There is nothing, and I do mean nothing, too difficult, too hard. I don't care how long you've been doing it, how long, you know, how long you've been in it, whatever it is, never too late. As long as you have breath in your body, you can definitely make your way back, and you
Mhm.
can definitely come out on the other side bigger, better, stronger, wiser, all of that.
Mhm.
That is a fact. So all you have to do is apply yourself and put in the work. That's it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, and I would say, lastly, everything that you need is already inside of you. My friend Rhonda Thompson, that's what she says all the time, but those words are very true. Everything that you're looking for in somebody else, you're not going to find it in anybody else.
Mm.
Thing you need lies inside of you. And there is nothing or no one on this earth that is worth taking your own life over. Nothing.
Ooh.
Because trouble doesn't last always. A lot of times our attitudes keep us in things longer than we have to be.
Mhm, mhm,
So if you change your perspective and your attitude about the thing that you're experiencing, just remember that there's always somebody else experiencing something worse than you.
mhm. Oh, I love that. I needed to hear everything you shared. So, wow, I love that. What is the meaning of life for you?
The meaning of life, oh, that's a loaded question. uh, I would have to say, let's see, if I could put this into simple terms, I would have to say life for me would be me given the opportunity to be an example of God's love for everybody He's created. The
Mhm,
same way that He takes care of me, keeps me, shows me that He loves me through the things that He provides, the people that He sends my way,
mhm.
is the blueprint of how I should be for other people. And so I am not here just to enjoy myself and have a good time. I am here to work and serve.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. You're here on a mission.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
love that. So how do you work with your clients? Do you work with people from other countries or is it just within the States?
Oh no, no. So whether it be in business or on the personal side with
Mm.
my other companies and what I do, you can be from anywhere. So yeah, I've worked with and collaborated with people, nationally and internationally. So it really doesn't matter.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you, your work, and support what you're doing?
Okay, so the easiest thing to do is to go to my website, www.ladyj.co. That's LADYJ.co.
Mhm.
And there you can actually look up all of my brands. If you click on them, you can go direct, it'll take you direct to their websites. And on each website, even my personal site, there are links to social media and things of that sort.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, thank you. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share that we didn't touch on?
No, I think you pretty much covered a lot. You covered everything just about.
Awesome. Well, Lady J, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everything that you're doing. And thank you for being a light and for showing those God's love, especially those who haven't seen it and feel it in a while. Thank you for being a beacon of hope.
Oh, yeah, no problem. And thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.